My name is John Chris. And last time we did the first episode on the 12 disciples. We only listed the names by number of the 12 disciples. Now today, in this episode, we want to do and we want to go deeper to the lives of these disciples, how they operated and how they lived their lives before, with Christ, and after Christ. So that's how we're going to do. And today, I just prepared something little, but with your time, you're gonna get into deeper in the coming episodes. If you missed the first episode, you can always go back to my YouTube channel at John Grace 254, and we're going to see the first episode concerning or about the 12 disciples. Now, in this episode, we have prepared. We are going to go deeper of the disciples. Now, according to what I have prepared, when we look on the 12 disciples, these are the apostles. They are the same people that were named or called by Jesus as apostles. These apostles, they are the same disciples, the first 12, because later we see Jesus called other many disciples, and the gospel of Jesus spread over the world, and now we are disciples of Jesus. But these ones are the first disciples, first immediate disciples that Jesus made during his ministry and before he started his ministry officially. The lives of these disciples, most of them, they were caught. They were caught in their daily activities. Others, they were just being called and fetched from their businesses to to do something else. And now we have, for example, the first person we can look on is this man called Peter. Peter, or the Rock, or Simeon. This one is, he was one of the dedicated disciple of Jesus. That is after he was called. But where did Peter came from? Now we can check on where Peter came from before he was, called by Jesus. So Peter was one of the people that were called from their businesses where they were fishermen. So Peter was a fisherman, and he was called from his business, from his activity of fishing out fish, and he was called to follow Jesus, and he agreed without any doubt. But in the history of Peter, in the life of Jesus after he was called, now we have seen several areas where Peter could even doubt, but his doubt was to measure his faith. Like we can remember the time he was Jesus was walking on water, and Peter asked him, "If you are Jesus, if you are Christ, allow me also to walk on water." So we thank God, because when Peter, he started walking over the water, he walked over the water, though he was almost to drown, but fortunately Jesus held his hand and pulled him up, and they walked together victoriously back to the boat. So Peter was one of the person who was very strong in the ministry of Jesus, but though he had so many weaknesses and so that, and because the same Peter is the same person that said they don't have any relationship with Jesus, though even walking and talking. They talked and they walked like Jesus, but he said, "No, I am not. I don't know. I don't know Jesus, or I was not in his companion." So that was Peter, and we have seen his life was. He was a fisherman. They walked with Jesus. He was very strong to defend the gospel, and also he was very strong in faith. The other person is another one leader, another disciple was John. John is another leader of the disciples. He was known as the author of the Gospel of John. Not only the Gospel of John, but also he was the author of the episodes of John, first, second, and third episodes of John. That is, those were the early church episodes. He was the one who wrote them. John also was a fisherman. John also was a fisherman. He was fishing. He was doing his business or activities of fishing before Jesus called him. And when Jesus called him, he just stopped the business of fishing, and he came to the activity of fishing men. So John was also a fisherman. Remember, John and Peter and James, they formed what we call inner circle of Jesus, of Jesus' ministry. They were the first people very close to Jesus, and they made that one was inner circle. John is likely also the disciple whom Jesus loved. He was one of the disciples that Jesus loved. John is mentioned in several times throughout the Gospel of John, that Jesus loved John so much. Even there's a time when Jesus was leaving, or he was going out from this world. John was told by Jesus, "Take care of my mother." Jesus even tasked him, for this beloved disciple, with taking care of his aging mother. So that was a sign or a symbol that John was one of the most loved disciple. So he was like the other apostles. John continued to guard and guide the fledgling church. Tradition suggests that he may have been saved from martyrdom, and lived out the rest of his days preaching the gospel and fighting against incorrect practices. Remember, Peter died very wrongly. Peter died, he was crucified, but Peter was crucified, upside down, because he saw it was not okay for him to die like Jesus. So he died upside down. He was crucified upside down. Now John, he was not martyred. He was not killed in any. So he survived in his years, and he was also. He continued with the business of preaching throughout the world. The other person was James, because I want to go very clear. So James was a brother of John, Apostle John. James had been a fisherman also before being called to the work. So James was the third member of Jesus' inner circle, because I had mentioned earlier that James, John, and Peter. James was the brother of Apostle John. James was the brother of Apostle John, and he had also been a fisherman before he was called to work with Jesus as a disciple in the ministry of Jesus. Now, James also formed he was the third person. He was the other person that formed the inner circle of Jesus. Because the inner circle of Jesus, these were the closest people in the ministry of Jesus, the people that Jesus trusted in his ministry. Peter, James, and John, they were the three. Now, James is here now, and he was very active and present for the most major activities or events in Jesus' ministry. Together with his brother, James was a powerful force for Christianity. Jesus called them the sons of thunder. James is sometimes also called James the Greater, to distinguish him from the other apostle who was named James. Now, unfortunately, James did not live to see the church a significant expansion following Jesus' death and resurrection. He was the first of the 12 to be martyred. He was the first to be killed because of his faith in Jesus. And the Bible describes his death in Acts chapter 12, where we learn that he was executed by sword by order of King Herod Agrippa I. So he was killed by sword, and it was by the order of this King Herod Agrippa I. And that's how James died, and that's how he was a fisherman. He lived with Jesus, and he also died. He died, immediately after Jesus died. He was the first person to be killed because of his ministry, of his faith in Jesus, and he was died. He was killed that way by sword through the order of King Herod the Agrippa I. The other disciple was called Apostle Andrew. In the Gospel of Matthew and Mark both place Andrew as one of the fishermen called away to follow Jesus. Also, Andrew was a fisherman. They used to fish. Maybe these fishes was the cash crop at that time. So they were fishing. They were fishing to eat. They were fishing to sell those fish and all that. But Jesus, there's something he spotted in these people, in these men, that he called them so that he can, convert them from fishers of fish to fishers of men. So Andrew was there, and Andrew was also present at many events of Jesus, and through the ministry of Jesus. Entire ministry of Jesus, and must have held the position of responsibility among the 12 disciples. He had a responsibility position positioned by Jesus among the 12 disciples, because he was one of the present member in the ministry of Jesus. He never missed in the major events in the life and the ministry of Jesus. When the Apostle Philip wanted to report to Jesus that certain Greeks were interested in meeting with him, Philip first took the matter to Andrew. Andrew, Philip, instead of taking the matter to Jesus directly, he took the matter to Andrew first, then they took it to Jesus. So before the two of them went to speak to Jesus. So they had to take the matter. They discussed the matter, then they take the matter to Jesus Christ. That is Andrew, and like the other apostles, Andrew worked hard to spread the gospel throughout the remainder of his life. Some traditions state that Andrew's preaching took him as far as Eastern Europe. Tradition also suggests that he was martyred by crucifixion, and like his brother Peter, Peter refused to die or to be crucified the same way Jesus was crucified, because Jesus was crucified, hands up and legs down, heads up. But Peter, he did vice versa. He was crucified legs up, upside down. His head was down and his legs were up. In this case of Andrew was crucified in an X, an X. I don't know how to place this X, but an X manner, in a way that one leg, one hand, in an X manner. So that's how Andrew was crucified, because he was unworthy to die in the same manner Jesus died. So we have seen how this disciple called Andrew was doing before, and how he interacted with Jesus, and also how he spread the gospel throughout the remainder of his life. And also he went up to eastern part of Europe, and he was martyred there in a cross, in a cross-shaped cross, so that he cannot die the way Jesus died. The other person was Philip. And this Philip, there are 4 different people named Philip in the Bible, and which can make it difficult to figure out exactly who Philip the apostle actually was. This is particularly true when compared to Philip in Acts, known as Philip the evangelist, who was appointed to help with the distributing food among the faithful, and who later preached in Samaria and Caesarea. Philip the apostle was one of the first disciples of Jesus, having been called to work directly following Peter, James, John, and Andrew. Like several of the other apostles, Philip's calling seems to come out of the blue, with the scripture saying that Jesus went and found him when he was getting ready to leave for Galilee. And Jesus called him, and he followed him immediately after that. From that very beginning, Philip was eager to share the gospel. Almost the first thing we learn about him is that he went and found Nathanael, who is usually identified as Bartholomew, who would himself become one of the apostle disciples, and brought him to Jesus, to meet Jesus. Christian traditions suggest that he may have spread the gospel through Greece and into the parts of what is now modern day Turkey. Traditions is less sure on how Philip died. Some sources suggest that he lived until old age, while others claim that he was stoned, beheaded, or even crucified upside down. No one clearly knows how these disciples, this apostle of Jesus died, since different sources have different ideas on how Philip died. Others say that he was beheaded. Others he was, crucified upside down. Others say or even suggest that he was stoned to death. But no one is very sure. Even me, I'm not very sure on how, this disciple of Jesus died. Now, the other disciple was Bartholomew. Is another interesting case of identity in the Bible. In the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, as well as in Acts, Bartholomew is identified as one of the 12 disciples. In the Gospel of John, however, there is no mention of Bartholomew with the name Nathanael taking its place. As such, many believe that The Nathanael that was brought into the church by Philip is also Bartholomew, who later became an apostle. If this is the case, then Bartholomew or Nathanael was certainly a good and just man, even before meeting Jesus. Even before he was just a good man. He was a good and just man. He was just a good man. Jesus himself described him as an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. And though Nathanael was skeptical that the Messiah could have come out of Nazareth, asking his friends Philip, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" He was quickly converted when Jesus revealed him knowledge that he could not have had to act. Quickly converted him, where he was quickly converted when Jesus revealed knowledge that he could not have had access to without divine insight. So it's believed that Bartholomew went on to preach in Ethiopia, Mesopotamia, Parthia, modern Iran, Lycaonia, modern Turkey, and Armenia, and that he helped convert Ptolemy, king of Armenia. Accounts of his death vary widely, with some claiming that he was skinned and then beheaded, while others suggest that he may be drowned or even crucified. So no one is really very sure on how this disciple of Jesus was killed or died. But Nathanael or Bartholomew was a good man even before meeting Jesus. He was a just man. He was, he was a man without deceit. And after Jesus, he spread the gospel widely, and he converted many souls to Jesus. And specifically, one of the souls that the Bible describes that is very known is Ptolemy. Ptolemy was the king of Armenia. So he did the work of Jesus, though no one knows how he died. That is Bartholomew. We have Thomas. And Thomas, when we always say, we say doubting Thomas. This is the person that primarily known as the person who doubted the death and the resurrection of Jesus. Because when he saw Jesus, Jesus had appeared to different disciples in different occasions without the presence of, Thomas. But when Thomas now saw Jesus, he doubted whether he could be the same Jesus that died, because normally he knew that if one dies, that person cannot be resurrected. But now he wanted to touch the wounds at the hands, at the feet, so that he can believe. To touch, so that he can believe that actually this is Jesus that have resurrected. Now, that said, the most memorable account of Thomas occurs after Jesus' resurrection. Jesus had already appeared to other disciples, but Thomas refused to believe them until he had the opportunity to see Jesus' wounds from the crucifixion with his own eyes and to touch them with his hands. Jesus public appearing to doubting Thomas and mercifully providing the proof that Thomas thought he needed. Nevertheless, Jesus went to emphasize that faith without proof was the greater blessing. So Thomas apparently bounced back from his doubt and became a powerful advocate for Christianity. outside of the Middle East. Tradition states that Thomas later preached in India and was killed by being pierced with a spear, and possibly several spears. That's how this Thomas died. He died in India, and he spread the gospel in Middle East, and he preached very much in India. But unfortunately, he died. He was killed. He was killed by being pierced with several spears. Now the other person is Matthew. Matthew traditionally attributes as the author of the Gospel of Matthew, though many modern scholars refuse this claim. The Apostle Matthew was nonetheless a noteworthy historical figure who was willing to give up a life of privilege to follow the guidance of the Holy Spirit. The scripture describes him as a tax collector based in Capernaum, in Capernaum, and also identified him using the name Levi. So Matthew was in a county council in Capernaum in those days, and he was he was based somewhere in Capernaum, and he was taxing people. He was collecting taxes from people, and his name was identified as Levi. Although he was ostracized by his countrymen of working with Rome, he was nevertheless a man who was honest with his own heart. When Jesus said to him, "Follow me," Matthew left everything behind. He remained true to Jesus throughout his ministry and continued to preach in different countries following Jesus' ascension. This is little conscious regarding how Matthew died, with some believing that he died of natural cause, while others claim that he was martyred, either burned or beheaded or even stabbed or even stoned. That's how Matthew. So Matthew was a tax collector. Jesus came and asked him to follow him. He accepted the following and also left everything and continued preaching even after Jesus ascended to heaven. And he preached the gospel. And when it came to time to be martyred, he was killed. He was killed by either burned or beheaded or even stoned to death. The other person or apostle is Apostle James, the son of Alphaeus, often identified as the same person as James, the less, and James, the brother of Jesus. James, or son of Alphaeus, is one of the more enigmatic of the 12 disciples. All that we know for sure about him was that he was called to be apostle and that he was present. Tradition holds that he went on to preach in Egypt. He may have been crucified in the city of Ostrakhan. I think that is the spelling. Or he may have been pushed from the pinnacle of the temple he was preaching at and then beaten to death. Then the last person is Judas Iscariot, Is it? No. Before I go to Judas, this Simon, where Simon the Zealot, even less known about the apostle Simon, that about James, than about James, son of Ephesus, or Judas the Greater. In fact, he was mentioned only 3 times in the Bible, and only when listing the names of the 12 disciples. He is, however, identified as the Simon the Zealot. Unfortunately, we don't have much information about this guy because he was not mentioned several times. He was not mentioned so much in the Bible. His name appears only 3 times in the Bible, and there's not much information about him. The other person is widely known apostle, the apostle Judas. Judas Iscariot is one of the most disciples that is very known. But he is known because he betrayed Jesus after receiving 30 pieces of silver. He betrayed Jesus by kissing him so that the Roman soldiers can know him and have in an easy time to arrest him. Afterwards, Judas regretted his action of betraying Jesus. And it is recorded scripturally in the scriptures account. In the scriptures account, it is recorded that he took his life. He committed suicide. Out of grief for what he had done to his master, to his Lord. So that's how he died. So thank you very much because of following on this account. God bless so much. We have seen different kinds of apostles and how they were called, their situations before Jesus came, and after Jesus, and after Jesus called them, and even after Jesus ascended, how they lived spreading the gospel, and how some of them died, because of their faith. So that's what I had. That is all I had today. And check on my YouTube, on my YouTube at John Grace 254, and you shall get the other information, and God will bless so much. So the next episode will follow the characteristics of a true disciple. Now we have seen the disciples of Jesus, the early disciples of Jesus, how they were called and how they lived. Now we want to see how Jesus wanted them to live. Now, in our case, Jesus wants us to live in what manner? Those are the things that we're going to see in the next episode. Hope you're going to follow and you're going to be blessed so much. And this one will make your life better and better, and will change it for good. So God bless so much and shalom. God bless you so much. Asante, Mungu abariki sana.